Nearly 1,000 ultra-Orthodox Jews have held a protest outside the Israeli embassy in London. Now, demonstrators said that the biggest threat to Judaism is Israel itself.
The street outside Israel's embassy in London has been a regular meeting point for demonstrators showing solidarity with Palestinians, particularly since Israel's 22-day war on Gaza. But this time it was the turn of hundreds of members of the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community to protest. They believe that Zionism and Judaism are two distinct and incompatible schools of thought. The hundreds of ultra-Orthodox Jews who've gathered here go as far as to say that Israel itself is a source of Jewish suffering and anti-Semitism. The main concern at this rally was what the organisers described as the destruction of a thousands of years old burial ground of Jewish sages. The site is being bulldozed to make way for a commercial development, with the permission of the Israeli government. But those at the gathering argued that this behaviour is just a symptom of Israel's general attitude towards religion and Orthodox Jewish teachings. They believe that Israeli society doesn't represent Judaism, and Israel's very existence is against the teachings of the Torah.
We believe that the time will come when Messiah will come, that is when the Jewish people will go back to Jerusalem. But we will not do that by force, we will not do that by an army. We have no entitlement to kill others for our ambitions.
True Judaism has absolutely nothing in common with the state of Israel. They do not represent us and we do not believe in them. Any act done by them has nothing to do with Jews.
The Orthodox Jews here in London also claimed that their friends in Israel were being mistreated by the authorities for holding similar protests and wanted to leave Israel to seek asylum elsewhere.
The Zionist government are not allowed to take away our rights, that we are considered now as refugees and people who are looking for asylum in all over the world.
The Jews against Zionism do accept that in today's world they hold a minority view amongst the Jewish community. Most Jewish sects support Israel, and some pro-Israeli passers-by were furious at the anti-Zionist display.
Why do you do that? You are not Jewish. They're making their own problems. No, you are making the problems.
The gathering, although attended by close to 1,000 people, was largely ignored by the British media. But the protest follows similar larger actions in the US during a recent visit by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Hassan Ghani, Press TV, London.
I'd like to welcome my guest for this part of the program, Jews Against Zionism, Rabbi Moshe Meyer Shengel. Thank you so much for being with us from London. And from the Christian Israel Action Committee, Calvin B. Hubert from Maryland by phone. Again, thank you both for being with us. Rabbi, I'd like to start off with you. Why are you protesting against Israel exactly?
Well, we are protesting against the Zionist state because our voice should be heard all over the world. Our voice that we are giving for the last 62 years and is completely ignored by the whole Western world, that the Zionist movement, the Zionist idea, was diametrically opposed to the whole Jewish belief, all Jewish basics, to the whole Jewish religion, the denial of the existence of God. They took by force and by power, by way of terrorism, they took over the power to represent the whole Jewish nation in a falsely way. They are not our representative. They can't represent a religious nation that had a past from thousands of years.
Rabbi, let me stop you right there. Rabbi, there are many people actually in the world now who think that basically Judaism and Zionism is one. So how do you explain this, that you're saying that there are two separate entities? Can you elaborate on exactly what you mean, please?
Well, the whole Zionist idea is based on a secular constitution, or the total denial of the Torah, the Jewish teachings, and the way from the Jews for the last thousands of years. Not only this is the total denial, but they want by force to convert the all Jewish religious beliefs, people who believe all over the world, to the new Zionist secular teachings, to transfer a peaceful nation, to make them a political nation with ambitions of power and aggression. This is a total denial of our past and the all Jewish beliefs and teachings.
Okay, let me get Mr. Hubbard in on this. Mr. Hubbard, demonstrators are demanding that Tel Aviv stop destroying ancient Jewish cemeteries, which they say is a violation to Jewish law. Now, is their demand an unfair one, or how do you see it?
The Jewish cemetery should not be touched, and I'm amazed that Israel would be moving in a different direction. That much I believe. But what I'm hearing from the rabbi here is basically something that, as far as I see, the Tanakh and the Torah flies in the face of every single promise and dream and hope of the Jewish people for 2,000 years, and even before that, meaning coming out of the Babylonian captivity. The Jewish presence in Jerusalem was the hope, the joy, the love, the desire, the dream of the Jewish people. Now they're back, and I'm hearing a Jewish gentleman, a rabbi, denying that it's a legitimate thing. I'd like to say this, and I'll be glad to have him respond, that the present return to Zion of 6 million Jews in a relatively short period of time, one generation, is one of God's greatest revelational and redemptive moves in all of history. It's legal, it's moral, it's right, and it's biblical, and it's redemptive.
Okay, let me get the rabbi's response to that. Rabbi, how do you respond to that comment?
Well, the Jewish nation, with the Jewish beliefs, they awaited a redemption, a spiritual redemption, a redemption who is coming by heaven without any force, not with any aggressions, and not a secular redemption like the Zionists put it. Redemption is not a redemption, but is the biggest misfortune and the biggest danger for the whole Jewish nation, a spiritual danger and also a physical danger. And the whole way how they gain to this secular state wasn't by a heavenly order, it wasn't by a godly way, it was a very naturally and earthly way, by terrorism, by political pressure, by convince and force media all over the Western world to help them. And this had nothing to do with our redemption. And it's very curious that the redemption that they called redemption, that they want to call redemption, was created by the most secular people, the most people who are staying away, who are denying the Jewish principle. How could somebody tell that we were waiting for redemption, we suffered the 2,000 years for the sake of God, not to deny any commandments, and to sacrifice ourselves to serve God with our commandments. And we were waiting for a redemption. They called it redemption. We are waiting for a redemption from people who denied, who want to destroy the whole Jewish belief, for a secular constitution, for a denial of the status of God, that He will make our redemption from exile. He will bring it in a way, in a peaceful way.